So good day, everyone. The project that I'll be sharing to you all is about a skill for autism and intervention of the theory of social motivation in a school environment in the Philippines for children with autism. So, a little background of the study. What is autism or ASD? It's a neurodevelopment disorder, impairment in verbal and nonverbal communication skills, usually diagnosed at the age of 2. So, why is it called a spectrum disorder? It's because every individual is different. Uh, it can include other specific disorders such as Tourette's, anxiety, ADHD, as you can see in the circle on the side. Okay, so how does autism manifest in children? So as you can see, these are the early signs. It can be a behavioral problem, um, like they have hypersensitivity to specific situations. They would want to follow a specific routine. They reject personal touch from people. They'd like to tiptoe, and so on and so forth, as you can see in the pictures above. So there are levels of severity. Okay, so if it's level 3, that means they really need support. Level 2, they need a bit of support, and level 1, um, they just need support. Right, so basically level 3 is you can't leave them alone. Level 2, there are times when you can leave them alone, and level 1, you can just watch over them most of the time, that kind of thing. High functioning autism can also be known as Asperger's syndrome. So what causes ASD? It's unsure. So most of it are just theories, so none is a fact yet. So it could be because of the genetics, advanced age of the mother or father, the drugs or specific medicine that the mother took when she was pregnant. So maternal metabolic conditions, and also the environment could have affected the growth of the child in the womb. So statistics of ASD, there are 60 million people all over the world. Um, children with ASD, there is 1 out of 68 children that are being diagnosed with ASD yearly. This is 30% higher than in 2012. So how many do we have in the Philippines? We have 500,000 people diagnosed with ASD. Okay, so yeah. So what is it like to be autistic? So why are we doing this project, and why is it important to understand who we're doing it for? So imagine all your senses being like hyper aware, or imagine having an on and off switch in your brain where one moment you're listening to something, but then you are able to close off or close yourself off from everything, so you can't really hear everything anything. So it's like selective hearing, but all the time. And then imagine having eyes on you, or hearing something like a shout that could be like an explosion to them. Okay. Anyways, next is a purchase on special education. We have mainstream, inclusion, and special schools. Mainstream is where typical students um, um, study. Okay, so they don't take into consideration the education for people with special needs. Inclusion is when they mix atypical and typical students together. So they are more, you can say, inclusive, or aware of the situation of people having special needs, and they mix it with the typical students. Special schools focus on people who have special needs, such as autism disorder and all that. So, what is the statement of the problem? So, children with autism have difficulty with social, emotional, and behavioral communication and interaction. Early intervention is needed in order to guide them to become part of society. So, The adverse isolation of people with ASD due to the lack of informed individuals and the brain stigma on people with disability does not help their condition to become better or significant members of society. So we're trying to, or this project is trying to research ways or a way where architectural design can help improve ASD, should people diagnosed with ASD's lives in the long run. So why are we doing this project? So there's an article posted by Dr. Stephen Camarata in 2018 where it shows that an increase of children are born with autism. So that's quite alarming, right? So as we saw in the statistics, 30% yearly, there's a yearly rise of people being diagnosed. And those are just people being diagnosed with autism. Okay. So there's a stigma within the society where autism or people with ASD uh, won't be able to function in the long run. Work, be part of the working class. However, they actually have potential and good skills if they hone it or if they're guided properly. That's why education is key to every child's growth, even people with ASD. So, research questions, as you can see, how can architecture contribute to the education of individuals with autism? What are the design strategies that we should take into consideration? What architectural qualities encourage or discourage the development of autism within children? So, these are the questions that we will be answered or try to answer with this research. Research objectives, as you can see, a design or a school design that caters to the needs of children with autism, the distinguished features which uh, encourage or discourage the development of autism with children in a school setting, to design a school which will develop or enhance um, the the future of kids diagnosed with ASD. So we'll also take in consideration the different types of design strategies, create spaces that will motivate the children to learn, lessen the stigma of people with disabilities, and promote awareness of ASD and also the PWD community. So what are we going to assume? Let's assume that this project will create a design which is safe for the people who are going to use it, also also enhance their overall abilities, whether it be motor skills or social skills or learning potentials. Scope and limitation. So the research, as you can see, is limited to children diagnosed with ASD, starting from the age of 3 to 12 years old, because this is where learning usually begins. Setting is in or was chosen as Venezuela City. Okay, so build up. Why are we doing this project, and why is this project necessary? Because according to studies, ASD is a lifelong disorder. So starting from the beginning or early intervention is really needed because it's not going to go away, right? That's why it's important to focus on. Um, each individual have their unique strengths and differences, as you can see on the side below. These are just some situations, like they have fast brain development, they have increased sensory and visual spatial abilities, they have good decision making, they have a time schedule, they're actually their physique is built some most of the time in a better, like stronger than typical people, and they have high levels of positive assortative mating. So what's next? Right to education. Yeah, everybody has a right to education, even those people with disabilities. And they should have an equal chance or access to all forms of educational opportunities. It is true that ASD have 63% um, likely chance to be recipients of bullying in school. Individuals with ASD cannot lead independent and successful lives. This is a myth because it already has been proven that people have employed people with ASD and they've actually become successful parts of society. Adults with autism, the working environment. So there are examples in real life where if you guide uh, people with ASD properly, they'll be able to be part of the workforce. They're very good at attention to detail, sticking to their routines and time schedule, which means they won't be late, and they're very punctual and reliable. So there's a stigma with the A word, okay? That's why we're doing this project in order to increase awareness and to educate those people who don't understand what ASD means or judge the people with ASD, okay? Autism and education system. So our goal is to have 100% of the children in school, okay? Not just 71%. What are our roles as architects in designing? Well, we play an important role in shaping physical spaces to make it possible for each individual to learn. Okay, so how we create something will affect those around us, and that's well what we know. Thesis statement. So our thesis is a school designed for needs of children with ASD can improve their behavioral, social, and occupational state. What is the antithesis? Is architecture a crucial element in the development of behavioral, social, and occupational state for children with ASD, and how? And then the synthesis is combining these two, which is an architectural school design which caters to early intervention of children with ASD through the application of social motivation in a school setting. So yeah, case studies. So what has been studied before? Um, what has helped other schools in different places when it comes to designing schools for people with special needs. This is a plan showing a layout in spatial zoning in England. Okay, so this is important because where you put something in a school will be important when it comes to wayfinding. Spatial sequencing, thresholds and transition zones. So these zones are important for people to socialize in. Wayfinding, navigation, and circulation is an important factor when it comes to helping the children navigate through the school easily. Okay, so escape spaces and sensory rooms are also an important incorporation because they tend to have uh, anxiety attacks or tantrums when um, they are overwhelmed with their senses, their sensory, the sensory information that's coming into their brain. Okay, so a space where they can calm down basically and won't hurt themselves. Acoustics very important to take in consideration, so that there won't be too much noise to distract them. Lighting also is a very takes on a very important role. So it's best to diffuse the light so it won't hurt their eyes. Color, it's best to use muted colors and natural materials based on research by these specific schools and architects. So let's go to the frameworks. General framework. What is this project all about? Who are our what do you call that? Who are the people involved? People with autism, not just them, their families, the school. Uh, what is the solution? education, what is the innovation, the theory of social motivation. Then that's how architecture comes in, a school for autism. So the theoretical framework. So a typical children, people with ASD education, and you're gonna combine it with uh, social motivation. So what is inclusive in the social motivation theory? We also have the theory of mind, initiative skills, communication skills, play skills, and empathy. This is all under the model of social motivation. Okay, so social motivation is connected to Walden approach because they are similar. They have similar approaches. Okay, so um, these are all things that to take in consideration when designing the security, the arousal, and making it fun for the students. Movement, interaction, making them learn independently as well. All right. Also, to take into consideration the sensory processing of each individual, and then integrating it or um, translating it into architecture. For example, sound, acoustics, vision, color, so on and so forth. So BP344 will also be taken into consideration, and then also the universal design. So how can we make a design that is universally acceptable, accessible, and functional to people? Okay, so that's what universal design is all about. Um, so yeah, all of this will add to motivation for learning independently and socially with people around them. Then design strategies, early intervention because the proponents are children with ASD from ages 3 to 12. So conceptual work. This is a conceptual framework. How does everything become a building? So student building environment, you have to integrate it, the community, indoor outdoors connection. So mostly how to integrate the spaces. Then predictability is the wayfinding. How does the children or how do the people find their way within the school grounds? Sensory information, so that yeah, of course we have to take that into consideration. For example, diffuse daylighting, minimizing distractions or sounds, both acoustic and visual, or what they can see or what they can hear. So what will be the outcome, or what will the goal be is to have positive student performance, and of course a building that will help ASD students learn. Methodological framework, how did everything come to the design conclusion? Site criteria. So there are 5 site criterias that we took into consideration: cleanest air, safest areas, coolest climate, PWD friendly, and eco-friendly. And then we highlighted those that were repeated themselves in each area, and then gave specific points on how important they are as a site criteria. Okay, and the one that came above all was Valenzuela. Thus, Valenzuela City was chosen as the site. Okay, so these are a few information about the specific city. Um, so zoning areas. Uh, the school will be in the red dot right here. It's in the mostly residential zone. As you can see, no flooding, but there is flooding in the surrounding areas. However, in this particular area, not really. Table of number of educational facilities, table of recreation health facilities. The climate is also something to take into consideration, especially because the proponents are hypersensitive also to temperature. That will help us design something that can be more sustainable also. So here are different maps where you can find the um, different clinics, different transport hubs, school maps, um, police stations, and outdoor areas or parks. So where is the site gonna be? At the top of Metro Manila, and then highlighted in this area, right smack there. So Ugong Valenzuela. So light pink are the major roads, minor roads are the darker pink, and then the blue is a body of water, and the site, of course, is in yellow. So warehouses, residential areas, open areas, as you can see in the picture. The zoning mapping. So what's the vicinity, or what does the vicinity look like? There are residential areas, and there are two schools beside it as well, and then there's open areas as well. SWOT analysis. As you can see, the strengths of the place is that it's accessible, it's safe, it has a good environment for students to learn. There's less distraction. Um, it's surrounded by a good mix of residential people and students. What are the weaknesses? It's far from the center of Metro Manila, which being is Manila. However, it's okay. One street that leads to the entrance and exit, and there may also be land and water pollution. May. But then it looked really clean when we went there. Opportunities, the opportunities to become a bigger land, so expanding outward. And then it's not a flood prone area. Threats, climate typhoons, and industrial city. So different design strategies taking consideration based on the theory of motivation, such as cushions, comfortable seatings, less distracting details, reduce clutter, so forth, so on and so forth. So what are the things or the interactions to take in consideration? Impaired social interactions, impaired verbal communication. How does this help? Also take in consideration the sensitivities that they experience, light temperature, noise, clothing, and then of course the architectural considerations, daylight control, acoustics, wayfinding, and sequencing. Yes, so sequencing and sensory zoning. So, how does this work? From low sensory activity, such as being in a classroom setting indoors, and then there are two types. So, classroom with a group, and then one on ones learning. And then you transition from the garden to high sensory activities. And then, wayfinding strategies, you can use fences or distincting pavers or tiles, um, also hedges. And then, yeah. These are different ways to buffer out the surrounding noises outside the school. Okay, so these are space program that well, basically this is the math part that we took into consideration when creating the spaces. It's for the admin building, the school building, the athletic and skill suite building, therapy buildings, public space, and then utilities building. This is the space matrix. What should not be together or not really related, what should be nearby, and what should be directly next to each other. Okay, for easy access also. Schematics. So these were different um, design considerations for the site development, where what should go where, and so on and so forth. So this is the site development schematic. These are the floor plans. This is the final site development plan. These are the elevations, longitudinal section, as you can see here, cross section, base section, and specific renderings. Thank you so much. Autism is not a disability; it is simply a different ability. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.